welcome. Would you please stand for the invocation and the Pledge of Allegiance?
Oh, we're missing one over there. Shoot.
Heavenly Father, as we gather together today, we ask your spirit of unity to be present among us. Help us put aside any personal agendas or differences and work together in harmony towards our common goal. Remind us of the words of Psalm 133, "Behold, how good and pleasant it is when brothers dwell in unity." Let it be our desire as we engage in discussions to make decisions that impact others. We trust that with your guidance and grace, we can achieve a sense of unity and work together effectively. May our words be filled with love and respect for one another, and may our actions reflect the unity we strive for. In your holy name, amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Scott, did they say they won't be here?
Cordell's on his way.
Denise is
He
out.
texted Denise is out.
What's that about, Cordell?
He's on his way. He texted me. He said he'll be a little late.
Okay, well, I'd like to welcome everyone to the December 17th meeting of the Mount Healthy City Council. We'll begin with the roll call, please.
Mrs. Lingo? Mr. Parsons?
Here.
Mr. Redding?
Here.
Mrs. Dosa? Here. Mr. George? Mr. Young?
Here.
Mrs. Rissel?
Okay, we have a couple members absent. Ms. Lingo is sick and Mr. George is on his way, so does anybody like to excuse?
I'll make a motion to excuse Councilmember Mr. George and Councilmember Ms. Lingo.
Mr. Redding's made a motion to excuse. Do I have a second? Ms. Rissel? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. You have the minutes before you from the December 3rd meeting. Is there anybody that has any corrections that need to be made on these minutes? If not, I would ask for a motion to adopt as printed.
Make a motion to adopt the minutes as printed.
Mr. Young has made a motion to adopt.
Second.
Mr. Parsons has seconded. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. Only correspondence we have is the police report, unless someone else has anything they'd like to bring up. Okay, guests and special events. Mr. Burns from the Independent Energy Consultants. Come up to the podium, sir.
I'll just quickly introduce him. Anytime we've talked about the gas or electric aggregation, all the materials or recommendations have come from Mr. Burns here. So he's been kind enough to come here in person and talk about the electrical aggregation. The ordinance, just kind of spoiler, the ordinance is written as he's recommending it, that Dynegy be the selection, but we can feel free to change that once we go through the presentation. I know he's going to recommend that we pass it tonight, so if we want to do single reading, but I think we also have the option to kind of wait till January if we want to take some more time to look at the rates, different suppliers, but go ahead.
So yes, I met with Scott, a couple weeks ago here, went through the results of our request for proposal process. As always, we go out and test the market, invite all the eligible suppliers in the Duke territory to submit proposals for the next term of your program. We did that here in November, and as Scott kind of mentioned here, this next term, the kind of most favorable option will be a short term, 12 months, with the company Dynegy. This last 2 years here, you've had a rate, 7.23 cents per kilowatt hour. That's done, well against, Duke's, alternatives and, some of the, kind of other publicly available offers out there. This next year, we are looking at another small increase again, driven, energy prices really aren't all that much changed from where we were 2 years ago. One big factor you talked about with Scott, there are rising capacity costs for our electric generators here, and just kind of the whole PJM, territory. Gonna see pretty much everything across the board kind of take a step jump of about, a penny here in June. So big picture, we're looking at a small increase this time around. We're looking at a shorter term, 1 year instead of 2 years here, so you'll be revisiting the market sooner. And, it'll still be an attractive option against, Duke's alternative, those publicly available offers out there. People will have the choice to, participate in the program if they wish. Continue that track record of being a, kind of favorable option out there. People can, understand it. Doesn't have a whole bunch of gotchas that, other offers out there have. People have been increasingly, messing with, kind of how they present their offers, adding in a lot of fixed monthly fees to, make, things more confusing, understand, contracts that end and roll you onto a variable rate, at the end that's, 2-3 times higher than what you were paying. The city's program never does anything like that. So it's, usually a very attractive option for the residents. It will continue to be that. It's always a very flexible option for the residents. There's no early termination fees. People can get out of the program anytime they like. They can always, join the program, midterm if they, things change for them and they want to join, sometime during that, next year here. So, we'd be continuing that, forward here. I know Scott's passed out my presentation and talking points. Don't want to kind of drive you through that whole thing here. I don't want to take up your whole council meeting, but any of the members have a chance to look at that, questions for me, I'd be happy to, address those.
Well, I would ask, what is the current rate of electric for kilowatt hours?
7.23 cents per kilowatt hour.
Actually, we're a little lower than. We're a little lower than where we were in June.
Yeah, so right now you're at 7.23. We're looking at a rate, going into kind of the mid 8-cent range. So we're looking at a kind of a small, maybe a penny step jump up here.
Okay, anybody else have questions?
Yeah, this does include net metering.
Yes, it does. Mhm.
Okay. I don't particularly like the rates, but that's the
one
way things are
does.
going. I guess it could be a fail-safe for our residents if they don't want to go out and look at the apples to apples and fool with doing that every 6 months to a year, changing their supplier, but
Yeah,
that's what I do, but.
if you're willing to put in the time and go through that process of going out to apples and, selecting, rates that are attractive, if you select things that don't have early termination fees and you can get out and, sign on to something new, yes, you can, chart your path through the market, a little bit better.
It's time consuming, I know,
It is.
but it can be worthwhile if you use a lot of energy.
So, but the aggregation is just one piece of that pie that, times where it is advantageous, to participate, you can always get on, you can always get off.
Right, thank you.
So, what does the demand for PJM look like? So we're on a 13-month. What does demand look like going out 2 years for
So
the
going out.
for the PJM territory?
So demand is, generally it's growing. That will be, a long-term trend. People always getting more electric doodads in their house. As much as they go to, LEDs and more efficient things, in general, that trend will likely, continue of demand. We have here in Ohio some big data centers, around the Columbus area looking to be built. That will be kind of long-term. That demand piece will probably be a bullish factor for pricing. So to that, why wouldn't we look at longer terms this time around? I would say to that, there are still, this 7-8 cent range, while historically, in the past, 24 years of deregulation, people have paid these kind of prices before. Nationally, over the country, people have been paying these kind of rates for decades now. Ohio's generally been a more advantageous state, for electric pricing than most. Feelings are that if you, in that presentation, we had a chart of the wholesale energy prices. Over the last year here, there has been a slight downward trend to that. A lot of people's hope is that that will continue kind of outpace bullish factors like demand. So in the face of a, another rate increase here this time around, I would say we're looking at a 12-month term in the, hopes that, things will come down 12 months from now. If they don't, the situation that the aggregation, through the bulk buying, competitive sourcing is able to produce rates, better than, Duke, publicly available offers, that, factor will still hold true. So even if we did come back a year from now and rates were, up again a little bit, we'd still be looking at things that are competitive against the alternatives out there. So I think, the tact, we've been, kind of recommending to Scott here is that look at the shorter term. You're not going to overcommit the city's buying ability. Because while residents can always get out of the program free of charge, once the city has elected that this is going to be our program offering for so many months, that's what it is. So we don't want to kind of overcommit that.
It's
here.
not spot market. Does this get us in line with some of the other communities that are aggregating then as far as time?
It
To include
does.
us into a bigger contract?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So we already have you on the same timeline with, we went out with, I think, 8 other communities. They were, some of them a little bit more spread out towards the northeast part of the state. I recommended, actually it was a 13-month term for Scott here, and that would bring you on a timeline with some of your neighboring communities here in Duke, Green Hills, Loveland, Hamilton Township around here, bring you kind of closer there. And it would also tie you with the capacity planning year. It's one of the charts in there. Does a little bit for suppliers to help them kind of, just tie the program length to that, kind of price component.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? Questions from Mr. Burns?
What does the generation market look like? Is anybody building more generation other than renewable?
Sure. So yes, long term, I can't tell you, okay, here in Ohio, this one's, at this stage of construction. But that is something with capacity pricing that it's a reservation charge for power plants. They get it for periods where they aren't running at full output, so they can be, remain open so we don't black out, brown out during the summer. As those prices rise, which they have done for this upcoming planning year, that is the price signal for people who are willing to, put steel in the ground and build power plants. So, aside from renewables, natural gas fire generation is what's being built to kind of replace, the aging coal plants in the area here. So yes, the, generation piece is, trying to keep up. That is a slower process too,
Is
build those
anybody
things.
building nuclear?
Not at the present. I believe nationally, I think the biggest thing is 3 Mile Island, looking to reopen. But that's a big thing, up on the lake. Nuclear has been a, benefit to have that, large, stable base load, generation. Our personal feelings is, I think it's an important part of our generation mix, and I would, like to see it, in the places that make sense.
And they're only opening one unit, I think, the one that wasn't damaged, right?
Right, mhm.
Yeah. So, yeah, my concern was also with all the coal sites closing on the Ohio side of the river
Mhm.
from here to West Virginia, outside of Miami Fort. Has anybody licensed for a natural gas site?
I couldn't tell you specifics
Okay.
on that, on, what dates and who's
Okay.
doing what right now.
Okay. So, yeah, I was just taking that, considering data centers, it was like, how much reserve we got and
Right.
how much are the generation plants, shouldn't say the plants, but how much are the generators,
Mhm.
playing the game now of
Right.
keeping demand a little higher than,
And, to that effect, rising prices, while it is in some respects a, benefit to them, you say, oh, they're making all this money. We have seen a lot of, marketers and companies, go bankrupt with these higher prices. It's a much larger capital outlay for them to enter these kind of agreements. If they get their pricing wrong,
Yeah.
kills them. So when we talk to these suppliers, it's not they're, oh, I'm so happy that the rates are 8 cents. They know it's a much harder sell to you, to residents, to pay these kinds of rates. They would just as soon, have us back in, 4, 5, 6 cent rates.
Yep, so would we. Yeah,
I certainly would.
okay. Well, thank you. Appreciate
Anybody
it.
else?
So the chart we went over, I think it was the 13-month was the lowest at the time.
Right.
I mean, I know these prices are from 11.25. Have they changed? I mean, they were within,
It
the
would be
13-month was 8.74 and the other one was 8.75. So I mean,
Right, so it'd be the final decimal point, so we might be at, I'm trying to think, I was looking at stuff, we might be at like 8.79, 8.8 right now as of today, so those final decimal points.
are you still recommending the 13-month over the 12, or you
Yes,
think?
we would.
Okay.
That relationship that the 13 is going to be ever so slightly cheaper than the 12 is not going to change.
Gotcha.
And that starts in April when this
Correct.
current
when the
one
term
ends.
So, as Scott mentioned, if you don't make a decision tonight, we probably would be looking one at your, kind of first of the new year, so we can have, a decision made, order a customer list, scrub it, make sure it's just going to residents and Mount Healthy, get letters drafted for your review, and then those need to go out, kind of in February, end of January, so people can have their 21-day opt-out period, and the supplier can do their enrollment, to hit that April meter read.
Excellent. Okay.
Anybody else?
Yeah, do those letters go to people who are not on aggregation now? Does it go to?
So they go to people who are currently in the program and people on Duke's default supply rate who haven't made a choice. If someone's already signed up with another supplier, they can't interfere with that contract. So those would be the people who get it.
So then the preference when we get to it would be that we pass it tonight, which would sign us up for Dynegy, 13 months. Would we basically get the price that's available tomorrow? Is that how it would work?
Yes.
Okay. If that's what council so chooses.
Anything else?
Is there a benefit to waiting to January? I mean, if we didn't want to do it in one reading, we have enough here to do it tonight, but if we wanted to wait till January, I mean,
That's, a roll of the dice like any market. We do see over the holidays, a lot of people take off. We have restricted trading hours. Sometimes you do get pajama traders who will take advantage of low liquidity in the markets and mess things around. We've seen that happen over, long holidays. But if you did pass tonight and you didn't want to execute tomorrow, I believe, how we drafted the ordinance for you, you would be giving, Scott the ability to execute. Not necessarily tomorrow, we could execute on the 18th, on January 3rd, whenever.
The next warm front.
Mr. Burns, we thank you for coming out and
Thank you for having me in.
keeping the council informed.
Yep, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Yep.
Public input. Anybody here who would like to address council? Jim?
Good evening. Two things, both on the subject of energy. One is, a number of years ago, some of you will remember there was conversation and action to replace a lot of the light bulbs with LED. And at that point, there was some monitoring done of energy usage before and after. I don't know if that continues, looking at energy usage, and if there's things that can be done to save money for the city. Okay, well, it seems like that would be worthwhile every once in a while to look at options to improve energy efficiency within the city. Certainly dollars that would be saved.
Something like that, excuse me, we did something like that a number of years ago.
Right,
Yes.
right. Yeah, the city contract was made to replace a lot of the lighting with LED. I presume that's what we're sitting under now.
Right. Yes.
And presumably throughout the building and other parts of the
Our
city as well.
maintenance department got theirs updated in
Right.
different places.
So just it'd be worth looking. It's probably been 12 or 15 years, I would guess, since that was done, so it's worth looking at usage.
Yeah, time flies, doesn't it?
The other thing is, in all respect to Mr. Burns, the contract that was written 2 years ago with Energy Harbor did not exclude net metering. It said all customers will be included unless the city and the supplier agree jointly not to. So that included everybody under a certain usage. Larger customers perhaps would have been excluded. The exclusion happened when a letter was drafted, signed by Scott Bauer, presumably drafted by Energy Harbor, that excluded net metering. So that happened after the fact. So at some point, they then pointed to that as the city agreeing to exclude some people. So even if at this point the contract says that it is included, until it actually happens, we don't know for sure. So I just asked that the city be diligent to make sure that while Mr. Burns says that everybody's included, that it really is. Because somehow they find a way not to. They cited an ordinance or a Ohio Revised Code statute that said that they couldn't. There's actually a code that said in the Ohio Administrative Code that says that they can, that they may include net metering. So they conveniently picked a part that they wanted to. So I just asked that you be diligent to make sure it follow through. So thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir. Anybody else? Madam Librarian? Nothing to say? Okay, committees reports. Beautification, Ms. Wingo's not here. Economic Development, Mr. Young?
This past Saturday, throughout the city, we had Christmas in Mount Healthy. Very nice turnout throughout the city. I'd like to thank the Business Association who made a donation for the Christmas in Mount Healthy, which Kim Cremines of Third Century, she's a board member there, and Diane Kohlmeyer put a lot of work in around town with different decorations and different things around, balloons and different things. So it was very nice to see. The mayor for the Christmas tree there in the corner.
Oh, yeah. Justin's putting up
And
lights right
Justin,
now
yep.
that aren't working, yeah.
So just a lot of things going around. And the park, we had the skating rink down there, which was nice, and had some nice fresh apple juice down there, warm and cold. So good day. It was a very nice day out there. Historic Society had hot chocolate and cookies and different things in the community room. So the pop-up shops at Taekwondo had Santa down there, and just a lot of activity. It was probably the most activity I've seen in the last few years, so last lot of years. So it was good to see that all going around the city there. So it was very nice. So I'm sure the mayor and city manager will have more to say on their report. Let's see. On Third Century, Mount Healthy is assisting the city in the facade improvement grants that the city had received. So all the applications were turned in and were due last month. So they're starting to go through those. Should have some answers for that by the mid to end January for the business that were selected for that. So looking forward to hearing what they have to say and what they come out with the report on that. Here in mid-January, also Yard and Company and Human Nature will be have a public engagement in mid-January. I think it's going to be at the library. I don't know if you know that or not, but talked about doing that at the library in mid-January. Well, as soon as we get those dates and get everything confirmed, we'll get those out to everybody as soon as possible. There's been a lot of work going in with both those groups, so they're going to kind of work together and put some papers together, get some pictures out there and different things to what Hamilton Avenue and the business district could look like with street calming and different things. So looking forward to see what they have with that coming up here in January. And let's see, last couple weeks ago, Economic Development and the CIC got an update from AK. AK is one we reached out to for developing our lots around town, of some of our empty housing lots. Look to put maybe some houses in on those spots, but it's just not feasible right now. The market is just too high for housing for product just to get things done. So we're gonna kind of put that back on the back burner again and see if prices come down here in the future. We want to try to do houses that look like the rest of our houses. We don't want to change our look of the town. So in some of these places, so we're trying to keep what we have but try to keep the price down, which we're just not able to right now. So hopefully in the future those prices will come down and we will see what will happen. I think that's all I have right now.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Young. Questions, sir? Council.
Well, I do, so Dan Glenn from Third Century, I think is going to stop by tomorrow. So has he already contacted you about having the meeting there?
He contacted me a couple weeks ago.
Okay.
About doing something next year, but we just didn't confirm dates, but.
Okay. I'm on an email chain. I think he's going to stop by tomorrow and catch us, so, yeah.
Okay, moving on then to finance, Mr. Parsons.
I don't have a report, but we have several ordinances tonight. The 2025 budget ordinance, the pay increases for the city employees, and the housekeeping ordinance. Those will be coming up a little later.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Parsons. Questions? Okay, library, Ms. Dosa.
Good evening, everybody. I'm just going to give a couple of highlights. I talked to Lacey, and she gave me some library updates. So here are some statistics from the opening day on November 2nd that were, she said it was really good to see. They had 1,117 people visit the library, 561 library material checkouts, and 114 computer reservations. And she just wanted to thank everyone for all their contributions to making that a successful day, and to the community for supporting the library. I think that's outstanding. That means there's more people visiting, there's more people going to the library, getting materials, and being present. So I'd like to see that. They're also going to start back to serving snacks in January. Anyone 18 and under can receive a free snack, and that'll be Monday through Friday, 3 to 3:45 p.m. They're going to also start expanding their after-school programming during the week, starting in the new year. They're looking into exploring local partnerships and opportunities to assist with programming in other areas and in large after-school groups. So more information about that will come out when it's available. One thing I did want to mention is that there has been several conversations had, and people have said things about with the new opening of the library, especially in the chief's report, there have been some increase of some conduct and behavioral issues at the new library. And the Mount Healthy Police Department has been putting in extra patrols in the afternoon, and Chief states that it's getting better, but I would like to just verbally ask all that are watching and parents in the community to just be mindful of the fact that we have a new library, and we want it to stay new, and we want to keep it here, and we want to not have those type of problems. And if they can please speak to their children and speak to the adults or anyone that's contributing to that behavioral issues, to remind them to just have some courtesy and what the proper behavior should be in places like that, so that we don't continue to have those issues. We want to keep the library nice, and we're grateful that we have it here. So with that being said, that's all I have for the library.
Approval in the parks?
Yes. For the park, I spoke to Mr. Reedy about the park bench, and he told me that it's scheduled to be shipped at the end of the month, and it should be received sometime in January. And we discussed waiting till spring for a placement for it in the park. So I'll get some updated pictures from him once it's received and give you more information about that. I've also talked to Playground Equipment Services, and I reached out to them about the different equipment that they may have available for the park, and talked to them about exchanging some of those things, and they're looking into their inventory. I also discuss with them about using the lower area and things that we can put there for smaller children or children that have sensory issues or disabilities or are on the spectrum. We talked about different things that we could do to switch up some of the equipment in the park. And so we're looking into that, and once they look into their inventory, we'll make some revisions and talk about that, and I'll bring that to you as we progress with that. And that's all I have for no, actually, I have one more thing, I'm sorry. With the parks is, I don't know if you're all aware, we talked about it, but we did not get the ODNR grant. We did not get it, but then I did reach out to the ODNR and spoke with Dolores Borslin, who is affiliated with the grants application process, and I talked to her, we had a really good conversation, and she said that she will relook at our grant and go over the application, offer some suggestions, and keep me posted as to when the new ones are available so that we can reapply. So I thought that was very helpful. So once that conversation takes place and she goes over it, I can bring back to you some of her suggestions, and we can move forward into applying again. Thank you.
Thank you, Keisha. Questions for Keisha? Okay, safety, Mr. Redding.
Yes, so we received the chief's report for the month of November, and I encourage you to make sure you go over that report rather well. And Keisha, he included in his note here that, yeah, they've increased patrols at the library, and yes, the library is vitally important to the city of Mount Healthy, so we want to keep it a very active place, but also a very safe and, inviting place, so continue to keep an eye on that. I did have a question, not to digress too much. How do they still measure the success of the library? Are they measuring that by circulation or still, or?
They look at our circulation, they look at our visitor counts, and they look at our, programming attendance.
Okay. Okay, and that's, as far as Mount Healthy's branch goes, that's going pretty well, especially,
Yes,
okay,
we've definitely increased a lot,
okay,
yes.
excellent. Thank you. So other than that, the only other thing I would like to add as far as safety goes, in January, we'll get together with the rest of the safety committee members and get a date to start discussing where we want our speed humps. So look forward to that, probably the first meeting in January, as far as picking a time. And that's all I have, sir.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Redding. Anybody have any questions? Schools, Mr. George.
No report tonight.
Streets, Mr. Russell. Then we move over to the mayor's report, Ms. Moody.
I'm gonna defer to Mr. Bauer for most information, but I do want to, again, talk about Saturday, and special thanks to Public Works. They did a lot to get everything ready, and we're there during the day. I appreciate that. Again, to Third Century, Kim Cremines, Diane Kohlmeyer, for all that they did. All of the businesses that participated, we had a lot of participation, and it sounded from what I was going around that they were all very pleased with how many people came into the businesses. Thank the library for all the activities they did. The Mount Healthy Choir was there to sing. We had the cheerleaders in the park, which was nice. Mr. Redding and Mr. Bittner did an awesome job with the apple cider. It was a lot of fun. Kids really experienced something that a lot of kids don't experience, and it was very well received. The s'mores that we did, the kids really enjoyed that. We had free skating, and a lot of kids, a lot of people don't have the ability or not the ability, but the opportunity to skate. And even though this was a faux skating rink, it really felt like you were skating, and the kids had a good time. And some parents were holding their kids up most of the time, right, Mr. Bauer? No, not all. I want to thank Mr. Bauer and his family for being there, too, and supporting what we did. Also, we had some fun things that happened, things that were surprising. The police department came and had their stuffed animals that they've had accumulated a lot and been given, and it was so exciting to see the kids get up and pick out a stuffed animal. It was really heartwarming, and they were there to interact with the kids. I'd like to thank the Historical Society for all the work that they did and what they provided, and of the council people and city people that were there. We had a great weather, so that I know played into it. But it was a lot of fun, and I think people appreciated the fact that there were so many things that were offered to them through the city, the free skating, the free craft kits, being able to make s'mores, getting the stuffed animals. Those things really were a highlight, because a lot of our families, in order to take their kids to events during this holiday season, it costs money, and it's not cheap. And so to be able to appreciate the fact that they could go and do these activities was fun, and it was free. A lot of it was free. And I thank all the businesses for what they did, because they really went above and beyond a lot of times. Even in the bakery, we had free coffee cakes, and Apothecary Shop had free ornaments that they gave out, and there were a lot of things that the different businesses did. So I just want to say again how wonderful it was and how much I appreciate all the efforts and a lot of behind-the-scenes efforts of people with Mrs. Dosia and her committee did in order to make this as successful as it was. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. City Manager, Mr. Scott Bauer.
Yeah, I'll talk up the Christmas celebration too. I did a few laps around the faux skating rink. The advantage of it being a faux skating rink is you don't have to have skates as well. So I could kind of just walk in my shoes with my 4-year-old, but we did quite a few laps. It was a lot of fun. My kids like it. I did everything out of order because I missed the penguin at the library, and Little Dutch was already closed by the time we got over there, but we caught Santa. So just my second year that I've been to it, so my kids love it. So it was a great event, great weather. Let's see, other things around town. Demolition, I guess the holdup is Duke getting out to shut off the gas officially at the Antique Mall. They have to come and actually do some things to disconnect. So I think that's scheduled for the 27th of this month. I don't know if everyone's seen the record that's out there by Red Lion. So, I mean, it is going to happen. The machinery is out there, but it just keeps getting delayed by little things. So hopefully the next month here we'll get it done. Let's see, we mentioned Human Nature and Yard and Company. So I know there's the January event, but we had pretty much our final meeting with Human Nature. They presented their recommendations. I'm very impressed, very happy. I told them in the very beginning, I want a checklist. Give me like 50 things that I can do, and then we can start budgeting for it, and we plan out how many we do this year versus next year, and I think that's exactly what they gave us. I think people will be very impressed with it. So what they want to do is have a joint presentation with Yard and Company. So I'm thinking maybe in February, if we want to pick a council meeting, I'm thinking we can kind of do it like a work session, maybe try to have it as abbreviated of a meeting as we can, and then conclude, and then just afterwards they can just present, and then we don't have to have a hard stop to the meeting. And I don't think it would be more than an hour or two, but it would be both groups doing it. So I guess kind of think about it if we want to do, maybe the first or second meeting in February, but it would be both organizations doing it at the same time. So let's see, the facade grant we got through the county, got $50,000. That came out of their general fund, so it wasn't tied to any kind of federal grant or anything else, just the county had a little bit of extra money and they wanted to put it towards, I think Laughlin got it, Woodlawn, trying to think, Reading. I think there was 6 neighborhoods that got it. We were one of them. So we went down to the commissioner meeting on Friday. Was it Friday or Thursday?
Thursday, yeah.
And we were there, Laughlin was there, Woodlawn was there, and just personally thank the commissioners for dedicating this money to our community. So that was kind of fun to see some faces, get some FaceTime with the commissioners. Let's see here. Just fire department, we met with civil service today, so that 9th person that we've approved in the budget, that will get posted here in the next week or two, and then we'll have testing scheduled in, I think, like the last week in January, something like that. So hopefully sometime in February we can have that 9th full-time fire department person. Did get a response from Rita, your question on having people show up. Basically, they told us we could go to their headquarters in Xenia, and they offer in-person if you have a question with your taxes. Otherwise, they just don't have that program anymore. It's just not something that they offer. Yeah, that's all the news I really have for that. So we're going to meet with them here probably in the next couple weeks just to kind of go over better ways to help Rita administer the program, things we can do, but it doesn't sound like having the in-person option is a thing anymore. So let's see, I believe that's all that I have. Yep, that's all that I have.
Okay, thank you. Questions, council? Okay, then we're going to move on to ordinances and resolutions. We have 3 second readings of ordinances. Ordinance number 24-2054, an ordinance to set compensation for elected and appointed officials and certain full-time and part-time employees of the city of Mount Healthy. Questions or comments, council? It has a first reading on it already, so this is the second reading.
The date of the first reading should be 12/3.
So October wasn't right, huh?
We weren't ready in October.
If there's no questions, I'd ask for a motion.
I'll make a motion to adopt ordinance 24-2054.
Okay, Mr. Redding's made a motion to adopt. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Mr. Young? Roll call.
Mrs. Lingo, Mr. Parsons.
Aye.
Mr. Redding,
Aye.
Mrs. Dosa. Mr. George,
Aye.
Mr. Young,
Aye.
Mrs. Rissel.
Okay, by a vote of 6-0, ordinance number 24-2054 is approved. Ordinance number 24-2055.
On that one as well.
Yes.
Sorry, guys.
An ordinance to make appropriations for current expenses and other expenditures in the city of Mount Healthy during the fiscal year ending December 31st, 2025. Melanie, is there anything you want to say on this, or? Mr. Bauer?
Excited for 2025.
Our budget with a surplus, $57,000 surplus?
Yep, that sounds right.
And you reduced revenues by 100,000, right? Okay.
Yep.
You reduced the budget number that we discussed
Right.
by 100,000. Correct. Just to make,
I would like to make a motion to adopt ordinance number 24-2055.
Okay, Mr. George has made a motion to adopt.
Second.
Mr. Parsons seconded. Roll call.
Mrs. Lingo, Mr. Parsons. Mr. Redding,
Aye.
Mrs. Dosa. Mr. George,
Aye.
Mr. Young,
Aye.
Mrs. Rissel.
Okay, by a vote of 6-0, ordinance number 24-2055 is approved. Our next one is ordinance number 24-2057.
Yep.
An ordinance to amend sections 155.032 of the Schedule of Uses of the Mount Healthy Business Code of Ordinances. Mr. Bauer?
This is just gonna help us manage, how many people are in each, unit. I think this will just help us with
Yep.
enforcement, so.
Sweet.
Sweet, yep.
Sweet.
Questions, council? I would ask for a motion to adopt then.
I'll make a motion to adopt ordinance number 24-2057.
Okay, Mr. Young has made a motion to adopt. Do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Redding? Roll call when you're ready.
Mrs. Lingo, Mr. Parsons.
Aye.
Mr. Redding,
Aye.
Mrs. Dosa. Mr. George,
Aye.
Mr. Young,
Aye.
Mrs. Rissel.
Aye.
Vote 6-0, ordinance number 24-2057 is approved. And moving on, we have first readings of ordinances. 24-2058, an ordinance amending the 2024 appropriations and declaring an emergency.
So this is part of the housekeeping process. At the end of the year, we look at the budget and see if there's any overages. The whole budget for 2024 is included in here, but basically by passing this, you're approving the supplemental column. You're increasing the amounts that were originally budgeted to cover expenses that were incurred above the original budget. I included a summary of just sort of why there are increases. Didn't get any questions back, but just, the biggest one is obviously the road fund. We don't budget that at the beginning of the year just because we never know if we're gonna actually get approved for it. But we approve it as we go throughout the year, so it's sort of technically approved, but just administratively, the auditors want to see us formally added into the budget. A lot of these other ones are grant-related. you know, if we get $20,000 for playground equipment, you know, it's free money, but when we spend it, we still have to show it as an expense, and it's not a budgeted expense. So, I mean, we got the money, but we have to add it here. So a lot of that's these kinds of things. We got $40,000 from We Thrive, the electronic sign at Heritage Park. You know, it's a lot of items like that that we just have to add to the budget, even though that we got it's a grant, so.
And a lot of these larger items, we got revenue offsetting, a portion of those.
Right, right. And this is one that, unless we want to have a special meeting before the end of the year, we would need it in one reading. These are items that the auditors want to see that we've approved it before the end of that fiscal year, so we need it in one reading.
Questions, discussion, council?
I make a motion to suspend the two reading rule, ordinance 24-2058.
Mr. Parsons has made a motion to suspend.
I'll second that.
Mr. Redding has seconded.
Mrs. Lingo? Mr. Parsons? Mr. Redding?
Aye.
Mrs. Dosa? Mr. George?
Aye.
Mr. Young?
Aye.
Mrs. Rissel?
Okay, by a vote of 6-0, two reading rule for ordinance number 24-2058 has been approved. Okay, administration has asked for one reading. That's up to you. If you want to come back on the 24th and do this.
I thought we just
We just
suspended.
suspended.
Is it-
Just suspended, yeah. I'll make a motion to adopt ordinance 24-2058.
Mr. Parsons has made a motion to adopt.
She seconded.
Oh, Ms. Dosa has seconded.
Mrs. Lingo? Mr. Parsons?
Aye.
Mr. Redding?
Aye.
Mrs. Dosa? Mr. George?
Aye.
Mr. Young?
Aye.
Mrs. Rissel?
6-0. Ordinance number 24-2058 is approved. Next one, ordinance number 24-2059. An ordinance to transfer funds from the general fund to other funds covering budgeted expenditures and declaring an emergency.
Again, these are housekeeping items. Whenever you move funds from one fund to another, you have to have a special ordinance. Some of these are the second and third one are bond payments. I mean, we budget that expense, but it has to be paid out of a fund that has no revenue. So when we pay it, it makes it go negative. So we transfer money in from the general fund. Economic development, that's actually the purchase of red line. Fire department, we typically have to supplement the fire department fund. We haven't the past couple years.
This is the
but-
first time for a while, yeah.
Yeah, when we passed the levy, yeah, we had 2 or 3 years of not having to supplement it, but we're kind of back to those days now. But these are just, again, things that the auditors want to see that moving money between funds is formally approved. Would need this in a single reading as well.
Questions, council? I would ask for a motion to suspend.
I'll make a motion to suspend the two reading rule on ordinance number 24-2059.
Mr. Young has made a motion to suspend. Do I have a second? Ms. Rissel has seconded. We'll call when you get time.
Mrs. Lingo? Mr. Parsons?
Aye.
Mr. Redding?
Aye.
Mrs. Dosa? Mr. George?
Aye.
Mr. Young?
Aye.
Mrs. Rissel?
By a vote of 6-0, ordinance number 24-2059 has been suspended. The two reading rule has been suspended. Are there any more questions or comments about this ordinance? Then I would ask for a motion to adopt.
I make a motion to adopt ordinance 24-2059.
Mr. Parsons has made a motion to adopt. Ms. Rissel has seconded.
Mrs. Lingo? Mr. Parsons?
Aye.
Mr. Redding?
Aye.
Mrs. Dosa? Mr. George?
Aye.
Mr. Young?
Aye.
Mrs. Rissel?
Okay, by a vote of 6-0, ordinance number 24-2059 has been approved.
Mr. Bittner. I do have a question for Scott, and it's just, do you recall, after looking at the park and pool, which is really all the pool and how much time's left on that? How many more years is left?
I want to say something like 7 years. That's the big one, right? It's probably like
Okay,
seven or 8
7.
years, something like that. I can look at the debt schedule
Yeah,
if you want afterwards.
No
but
biggie,
it's
no, yeah.
7, 8 years.
I know we've talked about it, and I keep losing track of, you know,
Mhm.
how many more we got, so,
Yeah.
okay.
It's getting
Thank you.
close, getting close.
Okay, ordinance number 24-2060. An ordinance adding,
Section.
section 95.061, removal of dead trees and tree limbs to the City of Mount Healthy Code of Ordinances.
So this is kind of part of our tree grant that we got. We have an arborist that's going around doing a tree inventory, and it's mostly trees in the right-of-way, but he's just starting to pick out a lot more dead and hazardous-looking trees. And a prime example is the 2 trees at Warner and Madison that were girdled. You can look on Google Street View, and if you look now, it's dead. You can look a year ago, and it was vibrant green. I mean, it's just in the course of a year, this thing has just died, and it's hanging over power lines and right over this guy's house. I mean, by all accounts, it seems like the guy did it to his own tree. I don't, it's beyond me why he would kill a tree, 5 feet from his house. But so this just, I think the code already allows us, if there's a public good or a public nuisance or public safety that's at stake, we can assess someone if they have a tree that could fall and injure power lines or injure someone else or their own self. But this will make it extremely explicit and just hopefully make life easier for me and for property maintenance people, that it'll just make it easier for us to assess and find someone if they have a tree that just really needs to be taken down. So it's just to kind of add more teeth to our code. 1 or 2 readings, either is fine.
Okay.
Questions or comments, council?
First reading.
Want a first reading, or do you want to go to suspend?
First reading, fine.
First. First reading. Is that right over here, first reading? Yes, sir. Okay, first reading on ordinance 24-2060. Okay, and moving on, we have one more. Ordinance number 24-2061. An ordinance authorizing all action necessary to support a governmental electricity aggregation program with opt-out provisions pursuant to section 4928.20 Ohio Revised Code, directing the city manager of the city of Mount Healthy to execute a supply agreement with Dynegy Energy Services to continue its electric aggregation program beyond the end of the current supply agreement and declaring an emergency.
So by passing this, we'll be accepting Dynegy. It doesn't explicitly state it in here, the term of it, but Eric, you're recommending the 13-month. So I mean, if that's what we're happy with, you can just verbally say the thumbs up that we're happy with that, and I'll work with Eric to get the contract signed, and we'll make it happen.
Said we could watch the price the next couple days or week, or to see which way it's going maybe, or do they actually have to make an offer of that price, or they will tell us what their price is?
So if we passed it tonight, how long would we have to actually sign the contract? You say it's like 30 days or 20? I mean, if you want me to wait, I mean, we could just wait a week or something and check it every day and see if that's what you would like me to do. I mean, we can play that game if you'd like. I mean,
See which way it's going, if it's moving at all.
okay,
I don't think we want to wait till January 7th, which is our next meeting. That's
right.
3 weeks.
Yeah. I mean, so I'll work with Eric, and then, maybe just we'll figure by the end of next week, if it's kind of trending up, we'll just go ahead and pull the trigger and I mean, I can send the rates out, right? You can get me, you know, every morning. He can, you know, that's what he's done before with the gas aggregation. Send me a rate, and we can just see which. And I'm happy to submit it to everyone and see which way it's going. If
I think that's a good idea. Watch it for a week or so and then,
that works for me.
Right now, we're looking at 8.74.
okay, so, any questions, council? I'd like to ask for a motion to suspend.
I make a motion to suspend the two reading rule on ordinance number 24-2061.
I'll second that.
Mr. Parsons has made a motion to adopt or suspend. Mr. Redding has seconded the motion.
Mrs. Lingo, Mr. Parsons.
Aye.
Mr. Redding,
Aye.
Mrs. Dosa, Mr. George,
Aye.
Mr. Young,
Aye.
Mrs. Rissel.
Okay, by a vote of 6-0, ordinance number 24-2061, two reading rule has been suspended. Are there any questions before we move on? Okay, then I would ask for a motion to adopt.
I'll second.
Mr. George. Seconded.
Mrs. Lingo, Mr. Parsons,
Aye.
Mr. Redding,
Aye.
Mrs. Dosa, Mr. George, Mr. Young,
Aye.
Mrs. Rissel.
Okay, by a vote of 6-0, ordinance 24-2061 is adopted. That is all of our ordinances and resolutions. So move on then to other business. Old business. No old business, council? New business.
I know I'm not on council, but I'd like to interject that I thought it was very festive for Mr. Young to dress accordingly. Appreciate it. Heard about the suit. Asked him if he could wear it tonight. You bring great joy, holiday joy to our last council meeting of the year, Mr. Young.
Wait to see my New Year's one.
Oh, I was wondering if you have one New Year's one.
Don't have clown feet in that.
I think the cameraman had to turn the lights down a little bit for the coat.
I think so.
Okay. Any new business? Okay. Does anybody care to make a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion to adjourn.
Ms. Rissel's made a motion to adjourn the meeting. Is there a second? Ms. Dosa? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. Meeting is adjourned.